You headed out to a day party, barbecue, or outdoor festival? Well, let me hit you with this weather forecast. 98 degrees and no breeze. But don't worry, man. Old Spice's Pure Sport Antiperspirant is the perfect wingman to keep you fresh and crisp all day long.
All right. Welcome back to the Deadman's Tome podcast with your host, Mr. Deadman. Joining us tonight, we have Kelly Evans. Kelly Evans is the author of the Morta Carne. I'm not sure if I said that right, but hopefully I did. Yep. It's a novel about monks fighting off essentially zombies on a land ravaged by the Black Death.
That's a very good summary.
And you have the follow-up of that, Revelation, was released today. Is that right?
Yeah, it was released today, and I've been online talking about the Black Death most of the day, and at one point, people met my challenge of buying a certain number of books, and so I did dress in medieval dress and posted it up on social media.
That is awesome. That's great, and that's a great way to promote your book right there. Just have a challenge and have a certain number of have books being sold and do something cool like that. That's really cool. I enjoy that. And then we also have Xtina Marie.
Hi.
How you doing?
Are you waiting for me to say something else? I had hi. I just something awesome just happened in my game, so I was watching that.
Really?
But I'm here. I'm here.
Okay, maybe James needs to call in and get on to you about that, because as someone who is also co-host or host, are you co-host or host? Yeah, sure. But you run a podcast, essentially. You're on a podcast, and a great one as that. The Panic Room Radio, that's a good one to listen to.
Yes, sir. Yeah, and next week we are our 100th show. I'm very excited. I think we have some really cool things planned. Not quite sure what yet, but they'll be really cool no matter what.
Well, and you're also a huge fan of horror, a published poet. You have a collection of Dark Musings, right?
I do. Dark Musings came out, I think it was like 2 years ago now, and so far we have nothing but 5-star reviews for it. I'm really excited, and I released a later collection a couple months ago called Light Musings, and that one's doing well. I don't think it's kind of received quite as well as my darker stuff, but I do have a softer side of me. And then
look at that.
In the fall, I will have Darkest Sunlight, it's called, and that'll be my newest dark poetry collection.
Nice.
I hate to use the word collection, I really do, and I normally usually go with a poetry narrative, because my stuff kind of together, tells almost a story. So I go with a poetic narrative, and it's actually darker, I think, than my dark, musings. So anybody who is a fan of Dark Musings, Darkest Sunlight will be even darker.
All right, that's great. I'm looking forward to that. I'll take a look at that. And I will say, for those listening right now, feel free to call in during the show. Call-ins are welcomed. You can call in by using the number 713-636-5637. That's 713-636-5637. Or you can reach me on Skype using Legato 10. Or look for Jesse Deadman. You'll find me. It's easy. It's easy to find me. All right. Anyway, with that said, all right, let's get into this. First thing, Kelly, tell me about...
Yep.
Okay, so before you tell me about Revelation, let's kind of do a recap real fast on the Morta Carne. This book... I mean, it was well received, right? I mean, it looked like it had 4.5 stars, strong, healthy reviews. I mean,
yeah, it's kind of a small market, and I hate to be with the puns and everything, but it is a dying market. The whole zombie thing. I mean, it's not only is the genre kind of dying down. People prefer to watch zombies rather than read zombies. So I had a bit of a tough time getting something out there that was interesting. So I've got a very small market, but I do get some really, really decent love from the market that I do have.
And that's very good. I mean, I know it's a small niche and it's shrinking. I mean, the zombie fad does seem to be, well, like you said, dying.
You're dying, yeah. I know it's a bad pun, but it's just, yeah, it's true.
And it kind of, so when I look at the reviews, I saw it really should have 5 stars, but it looks like someone just like bombed it with a bogus 1 star, and pretty much their complaint was pretty much anything zombie gets like -5 from him if you could. I'm just like, man, then what was the point? Like, if you don't,
I know,
like,
I've been that review's kind of bugged me, because if you take a look at it, it's not a serious review, because the person admits that they never actually read the book. They downloaded it by accident, not knowing it was a zombie book, even though it says zombie apocalypse in the first 2 lines.
Yeah.
The first 2 words of the description. But, it brings my average down. But, if you look at it, you can tell that it's kind of a bogus review. So it doesn't really bother me. I don't respond to reviews.
Yeah. And you know what? Honestly, there are some books that are like bogged down to like 2 star, even 1 star, that still sell here and there. So, I mean, it's not going to be, I think overall the 4.5 is a good reflection of the book. I think so, yeah. And considering, basically what I did was I took your zombie story, and I'm a medievalist, so I'm heavy into the medieval period. I'm mostly early medieval, so around the Viking times, because I write books. I'm working on a second book in an Anglo-Saxon series that's pure historical fiction. But I love horror. I love horror so much. I watch so many cheesy horror movies, it's not even funny. So I had to do a zombie book. But because of the love of history, I decided, what perfect time to have a zombie apocalypse than during the Black Death. And I just kind of went from there. Wow. I did a massive amount of research to the extent that I try to make every single word in the book no later than, there's nothing newer than 1400. So if I'm writing and there's a word that sticks out, I'll actually have dictionary.com open in the background and I'll check it. And if it's later than 1400, it gets removed.
That's cool.
I did a lot of research for this.
That is an attention I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I know.
Maybe a little bit OCD with that, but I kind of, I don't know. I just think it's cool that you read this book and there shouldn't be any anachronisms, including the vocabulary.
No, definitely, I agree with that.
And obviously.
There are times that I will read a book and, there'll be like 40-year-olds in the book and their name is like, something really funky and something, like really hip now. And I'm like, there's no way that 40-year-old is named that. And so I think it just takes you right out of the story. At least it does for me. But I was going to ask about, zombies with all the different books and all the different movies that are out there and the shows about zombies. Like, what did you do different with zombies to make it like your own?
Well, my zombies can be okay. So, mine take place during the Black Death, and it's not. It's about the zombie story. They're called the Mordecai, which is a completely made up word. But I have to thank someone for that because he helped me with that. But my main character is a monk who is also a physician. He's gone to a very large school called Salerno, and he's ready to go. He stumbles into this world accidentally. The church can't tell people about the zombies because if there are other things that are rising, then people are going to doubt Christ, the fact that Christ has risen. So it's kind of this big secret that the Pope and a number of kings know about. And so there's a little group of people that go around, looking at this stuff. So the first book dealt with Maurice going around England investigating potential sightings of these Mordecai and various things like that. And the second book has him actually traveling across Europe looking for a cure for what they think is a disease.
Mm. That's an interesting thing, Kelly. I didn't think about that. If the dead was coming back to life during that time, no one would really say anything about it because, like the church would find that to be a problem because, I put a lot of thought into it, and I've done a lot of, just in my historic research, I've done a lot of history of the church and history of popes and medieval church and medieval Catholic Church and all that kind of stuff. And I just put myself into a situation hold on. We got a call right here. I don't know what this is. What's going on here? What's going on here?
Hey, let me see if I'm coming in clear over here to freaking podcast. Got this guy. I'm trying to find a Kelly Evans. She's there?
I am. Oh my God, another accent I love. Please keep talking.
Oh, okay, good. Listen, this is Bishop DeVito over here at the St. Mary's of New Jersey.
No.
Whoa. Well, what's the problem, fella?
I mean, are you coming here just to bombard the show? What's going on here?
Listen here, this is no means a bombardment of any kind. This is more of like an impasse we are at between this here Kelly Evans. It seems that she is an author here of a book called The Rigatoni or something like this. Listen, I'm here to talk to her about this book. I've been touched by the Bishop, Pope Francis himself. Let me tell you.
In what way?
He needs you to unpublish this book. It's having problems with the church.
Is he trouble? Well, you know what? The church. I don't know. I'm not sure I can do that. I mean, as an author, I have a responsibility to expose the truth about these things. You understand?
Well, I mean, I understand responsibilities. I mean, after all, I'm a bishop. You know, I swing the ball around, the smoke goes around, and all these other things. You know,
you like to swing the balls around, all right?
The little metal ball on the. Anyway, it's not the point. The point of the matter is I would hate for bad things to happen to you if you don't unpublish this book. I would hate for things to come down on you.
Oh.
You know what I'm saying? You know what I mean?
Well, I have studied the history of the Catholic Church, and I do know some of the unsavory parts of it that you might not want to get out.
Those are, I mean,
you threaten me, I threaten you.
Oh, these are not threats. I mean, a threat would be like, I'm sending Johnny Boy down the street, to go to work to the homes around here. But listen, this is not a threat. This is just the Lord will bless you if you do not take action.
Oh, damn.
And let me tell you, the Lord blesses pretty hard, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, okay. I'm going to have to think about that. But if it helps you, if it helps you, Brother Maurice, the main character, actually does tweet out the goodness of the Catholic Church and healing them on Twitter.
We got someone else calling in. Who is this?
Here. The Pope Bishop does not, have a Twitter, as far as I know, but we appreciate this helping hand of knowledge. But
wow.
And a new caller okay, there's a new caller on right now. Okay, what's going on?
Whoa. I'm trying to handle some business here. Whoever this new caller is, you just need to go off. He better not be Irish. I can't take any of that.
Whoa. That sounds kind of racist there.
That's a bit racy there.
Yeah,
whoa. Get out of here. Get out of here. We don't deal with the Irish around here in the Catholic Church.
Oh, okay. A new caller on the line. Are you there?
I am there. I was enjoying listening to you guys bashing the bishop. Which was entertaining.
Mr. Longmore, James Longmore.
I've got a question for Xtina actually that I've always wanted to ask. Is Xtina, when you were writing Dark Musings and your lighter book, Light Musings, did you eat an apple?
I eat apples often, so it's very possible that I was eating an apple.
Was it a red apple or a green apple?
It would have been red. It definitely would have been a red apple. I'm a fan. I don't really care for the green ones. They're a little bitter,
And I'm pretty sure the one in the Bible was red, but that's not an issue.
I don't think they in the Bible it doesn't actually state that it was an apple. I think it was.
No, it doesn't.
Described
it's
as
just
fruit.
Yeah, definitely. It's not an apple.
You would tomato, it's a friggin' apple. You know what I'm saying?
Could have been a fig.
A bishop who's been touched personally by the Pope would know that. So,
that's right.
I'm beginning to think maybe a bogus bishop
No, they don't.
Oh, you were bogus.
Harry Potter and the Bogus Bishop. You know, I sit and read that.
You wouldn't be bogus.
Anyway, I'll close out with the final statement of freaking unpublish your book and the Lord's Prayer. Epoxy, rigatoni, fruit lola. Have a good day.
Thank you. I'll take it into consideration, Bishop. Thank you.
Oh, he left. Well, Kelly, what do you do with that?
Wow.
What do you do with that, Kelly?
Sorry, I was just choking on my champagne there. I really don't know. That's quite alarming, actually. I'll have to think about that.
Are you going to unpublish? Are you going to unpublish Mordecai and Revelation?
Probably not, because like I said, I'm a writer, and part of my responsibility as being a storyteller is getting the word out there, even if I have to disguise it as fiction.
Well, where can people get this book that the church seems to have a thing against?
Well, Jesse, it's nice of you to ask that. You can get it on Amazon.
Look at that.
Most Amazon locations, you should be able to get it. You can also order it direct off of CreateSpace if you want to go that route. But you can get the paperback and the ebook. And let me just since you're giving me this opportunity, let me just say that Mordecai and Revelation are both on sale for 99 cents for this week.
That is awesome.
Yep.
Yeah.
And you better act now because the church is on this, and you don't know what's going to happen. They have some crazy pool. Look at that. All right.
And it sounds like they know where I live, so yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yikes.
And this guy was touched personally by the Pope, so who knows? I mean, it's all...
Well, from what I've read, I think a lot of people have been touched personally by the Pope, and most of the Catholic Church. So,
yeah.
It doesn't make him any more special, does it, really? I think it's on the path of the course, isn't it? If you've been in a Catholic Church at all, that you've been
it's a very
molested at some point. Say again?
I'm glad he hasn't read
Kelly,
any...
I have to say, Kelly, Kelly is on point with the puns tonight. Brilliant. I'm loving it.
Kelly is a spitfire. Don't be taken, but don't think of her any less. Kelly, she might come off seem very nice and classy, but she is a spitfire. She can, I don't know, she can hold her own in a conversation. She can.
Thank you.
Now, with that said...
Talk about dark poetry. Okay, talk about dark poetry, because I actually, if I can just interject a little bit, I actually went through kind of a dark poetry phase. I was writing... I wrote Victorian morality poetry. I discovered a book of something called Struwelpeter, which was all written by a dentist in Victorian times. And he left it out in his waiting room for children, and it was all about what happens to bad children if they're bad. And I went through a phase of writing poetry about what happens to bad parents when they're bad, and also what happens to bad children when they're bad.
Oh.
Wow. Awesome. I'm glad that caller had not read anything of mine, because I do sprinkle in some poems that I would consider just a tad blasphemous at times. There are definitely some kinky nuns and... some definitely kinky nuns and some religious overtones in some of them that are, a little, I don't know, interesting, I guess you would say. So I'm hoping that my book stays away from whoever that was.
Hopefully.
No, it sounds like it's just the sort of book he needs to read, to be honest.
Right.
No, but I think Kelly's problem, I think what happened with Kelly is that... Well, I think somehow I saw a photo where it looked like the Pope was holding the book. So somehow the Pope got a hold of the book, and he might have a problem with it, and he sent someone out there. So I don't know.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about that, actually. Maybe I shouldn't have maybe altered reality a little bit and maybe had the Pope holding my book up in adoration.
Well, it's kind of like Trump holding a copy of the conspiracy issue of Deadman's Tome. I mean, what's going to happen to me now, Who knows? Xtina, has anyone touched your book? I mean, anyone famous? I know a lot of people
Not
have.
Yet.
You have quite a bit of following. You have a lot of lovers out there. Wait.
I do. Yeah, no, I like that. It's funny with my with the show that we do with the Panagram. I've had a few books that people send me, and they'll sign it for me. And we had this one gentleman on, and I don't know if it was a joke. Like, I don't know if he thought it would be funny, but he signed it to me. Thanks for a good time, and that, and then, so I told another friend of mine that, and he signed his book as well, thanks for a good time. So, when something happens to me and my children start going through my things, and, they find all of these signed books, thanks for a good time, they're going to wonder about their mother.
Well, I think we behind the scenes, we do refer to her as Xtina Good Time Marie.
Oh wow! Look at
that. Don't tell her that. I mean, she is literally the good time that was had by all. So.
Oh my God!
I think
Xtina.
It's fitting. It's a fitting that they signed that for you.
Oh God! I can't believe you said that.
No. I very rarely get books sent to me. I had the odd one, but my favourite. We have the guest. She's been on a few times. She sends me English. Chocolate, which is fantastic.
Candy, yes.
I've eaten all the Mars bars now. Send more.
No.
Oh,
Okay.
I know.
You can't get Mars bars here.
Now hold on,
English
James.
bounty bars.
James, this is good. Now I have to tell you something though. You're on a tight leash here, okay? You're gonna let Xtina talk. If you talk over her, I'm gonna have to put you on mute. Can you do it?
Oh, he's got the button. Oh my goodness.
I'm not controlling the button no more. Oh no.
I know. And before the show started, I was blathering on about baseball. I was. There's a game that's going on right now, and it's actually not doing too good. So it's okay that I have my back turned right now.
You know what's interesting, Tome? the whole beginning chat was so. I mean, if we recorded that is material there too, because that was very cool. Just that whole conversation, just listening to you guys talk, like Kelly and Xtina talking about the Blue Jays. I mean, that was great. All right, but anyway, Kelly brought up a good point. Let's talk dark poetry. Xtina, tell us about your dark poetry.
Okay, well, let's see. Poetry was I've always wanted to be a horror writer. Ever since I was probably in middle school, I used to write scary stories, and my classmates would read them and stuff and get scared, and that's what I wanted to do. I even in high school, I think I got an award for best Stephen King writing style, which was really cool to me. And poetry was just something I did. I think I started when I was like a teenager, and I was going through my first, big crush and my first big heartbreak, and so I kind of turned to poetry, and but it was never something I shared with anybody. It was just something very secret. And a couple years ago, I had a writer pal of mine, this lady that I had read many of her books, and I really looked up to her. And, one day we were just chatting on Facebook, and I asked her what she was doing, and she's like, well, I'm proofreading and dark poetry, a friend of mine's poetry, and it just clicked, and I was like, and I was like, well, you know how people always say when you have an author friend, you're never supposed to ask them to read your stuff? And she's like, yeah. I'm like, well, do you want to read my stuff? And I sent her some of my poems, and she loved them. She asked me if she could put a couple of them in the back of one of her books, and that was the first time that I was published. And after I picked myself up off the floor, after I got done fainting, I said, yes, I would love, for you to put my poems in your book. And that's how it started. And Dark Musings is a collection of just really, and it's called Dark Musings, but I actually think the overall tone is probably more of heartbreak and sadness than it is darkness, but I guess that is a form of darkness, And with the collection that I have coming out in the fall, I went darker. I went into, just, insanity and demons and monsters and people that are just murdering, and there's even a poem there about a Santa who goes around murdering people, and so I went a little further than I know, right? But it was fun, though. It was a lot of fun to write that one. And, you know, it starts off with and I did say that my stuff is considered like narrative poetry. So it kind of tells a story. And the first, like, story arc is kind of, we follow this little girl, and, you know, she murders her family. And so we follow her, you know, through pretty much, you know, up into adulthood. And it's just been a lot of fun. So I'm really, really looking forward to releasing Darkest Sunlight, and I'm hoping that my fans love it. And another thing is that with Dark Musings, every poem is pretty much how I penned it. I didn't make any changes afterwards. That's how, you know, how whatever I got down on paper, that's how it was. And with Darkest Sunlight, it's a lot more, I think, refined. And I'm so proud of the work that I put into this. So I'm really hoping that I don't know, I wanted to do better. You know, I wanted to top Dark Musings, and I'm hoping that happens.
Wanted to
that
connect.
was a lot of blather, wasn't it?
Oh no, it's okay though. It's good to share. Okay. But yeah, you wanted to connect with people. I get that. I think.
Yeah. Definitely. I think that's what, you know, and poetry is so personal. I mean, I don't know about for everybody, but the way that I do it is very personal. And it's, you know, it's oh, God, especially Dark Musings. When somebody picks that up, and, you know, I've had friends of mine will message me, you know, I'm reading Dark Musings, and I still, it's 2 years old, I still get sick to my stomach. Because it's like somebody's opening up your diary. You know, somebody's deciding, you know, I'm going to start reading your diary. And because most of the poems in there are so personal to me. I mean, if I pick up the book now and I, you know, flip through it, I can feel, you know, I can remember back to when I wrote that and what I felt. And, you know, sometimes it's not always a good feeling. You know, some of them definitely are, but there are some that, you know, I still... You know, I get that pain, that stabbingness, you know, that you feel in your, like, gut or something, that it's kind of like you've been punched or something. So it's very personal. It's different than writing. I mean, I still get nervous when people are going to, you know, read one of my short stories or something, but poetry is way different.
Do you care to share? I mean, do you care to dig into this? I mean, you have my attention, my full attention here, and I'm like, if you're willing to get personal, I'm willing to listen. You know. Sure.
Let's see. I had two poems that I picked out to share, and definitely the first one is from Dark Musings, and it's probably my favorite. I think Dark Musings has a collection. I think there's like 44 poems in there, and this one will always be my favorite. It's called Imprisoning Me. This confusion is confusing me, chaos breeding insanity. What is real and what is fake? How much madness can one take? In broad daylight, I see the North Star. I look right at you, but I don't know who you are. I'm naming all the hairs on the top of my head. Confusion ensues because I've named them all Fred. I roller skate in the living room on the carpeted floor. May sound a bit eccentric, but I'm never a bore. I have to turn the page. Hang on. Okay, here we go. I play hopscotch on my bed late into the night with Little Bo Peep and Rainbow Bright. I try to sleep as the darkness falls, but I'm still standing against padded walls. I struggle against my restraints. He'll be coming soon, and it's almost too late. I gnaw at the straps, bang my head on the floor. Terror engulfs as I stare at the door. The locks fall away because I held the key. I've always been the one imprisoning me.
Wow.
The end. So that one it has a lot of, I don't know if I would say it has a lot of meaning for me, but, you know, I was at the time at a really, really, really low point in my life, and I just felt like, you know, it's me, like I'm the one who is causing these things or something like that, something to that effect, you know, that, you know, everything that is wrong in my life or whatever I can blame on myself. And I think it took a long time to realize that because, you know, just like in the poem, it looks like there's so many other things, you know, that's going on. She's this, you know, crazy girl, and she's, you know, locked up in a padded cell somewhere, and she thinks something's coming for her. But then, at the end you realize it's just her. She's the one who's doing this. And so...
Well, listening to that, I mean, I could tell that you felt kind of vulnerable, sharing that. At least that's my takeaway from it. I don't know. It seemed kind of...
Oh, yeah, I'm sweating right now, so...
So, in doing this over Skype, all I can really hear is tone, and it's, it's the phone quality and all that. So, but I think the listeners could have at least captured that, at least, So that's good.
That's actually something I've always admired. I've loved poetry. I've got some very favorite sort of old, sort of like 17th, 18th century poets and stuff. But it's not something I can do myself, and I can't put myself out there like you guys can, like you poet. I'm sorry, I'm grouping you in like you poets as opposed to us writers. I know it says a blurry line there. But how do you do that?
Poets versus writers. Here we go. Class war.
How do you allow yourself to be so vulnerable publicly like that? Like with writing, I guess I can hide behind everything I'm doing, and you can't. You could probably see a little of my personality in my writing, but it's not like you can't see deep inside. But that is raw. And how do you do that?
It's not easy, and it's very true. And still, if somebody close to me, if somebody that I care about is reading my stuff, that is probably even scarier for me because they know where it came from. They know what I've gone through. They, so it makes it even, I guess, scarier, because a lot of times when you're reading, even if you're just reading fiction or anything, there are times, I read a lot of stuff. There are times when I'm reading something where I think to myself, I wonder where this comes from. I wonder, if this maybe has, there's some kind of truth here. Because there could be. There very well could be. Because a lot of all writers, they write what they know. I mean, that's something that we've always heard. You write what you know. So there's often times I wonder, is any of this true? What part of this is true? So, and the same goes with poetry. When I read other poets, I'm wondering, where is this coming from? Is this, is this something that's happened? And for most of my poems, well, aside from the ones where, the girl's mad because the guy's cheating and she kills him, aside from those, there is a lot of truth to my poetry. There's a lot of, raw emotion. I mean, I have, one where it begins where this girl is lying on the floor and, there's blood everywhere. She can barely breathe. You think, oh my God, this woman has just been attacked. She's been left for dead, and then we get halfway through the poem and you realize that it's not real. It's heartbreak, and she's like, the heartbreak is killing her, but it's not real. But I mean, I painted this picture of this woman lying here in all this blood, but it's not until like the middle that you get that it's just, it's heartbreak. It's not real. So, I try really hard to, paint these very vivid pictures and, of whatever emotion that I'm feeling. And normally, after that, I just I do amp it up a little bit because obviously, I wasn't really bleeding out or anything, but the feeling was there, and that's probably one of the poems. It's actually the very first one in Dark Musings. And that's one that when I read that over, I remember the feeling in my gut that I had when I was writing this, and it just felt like I was being punched. And it was a physical pain, and it was just heartbreak, So, I don't know. No, your question was how. I don't know. I really don't. And I still get nervous to this day when people read my stuff. So it's very scary. It really is.
I think I've only ever approached that level of, I guess, the sort of the visceral quality of that poem that you just read. I wrote a very short story. It was like about 100 words when my grandmother passed away from Alzheimer's. It was, I don't tend to do serious. I do serious as far as like my historic fiction, but I'm writing about someone else's life. And my historic horror, I do the research and I do some of the serious stuff, but it's horror. I mean, it's about zombies. I couldn't do what you do and put myself out there like that. Well, and I find that there seems to be a common theme with poets that I like, that they just grab you by the heart and yank you.
I sure try. I know that I belong to this community online of poets, and there's many times that I'll read a poem, and you always hear, there's no wrong way to write a poem, and I don't necessarily agree with that, because I do think poetry is supposed to make you feel. And if you can just read it and you go, that's okay, or that's whatever. No, poetry is supposed to make you feel. Just as like writing is supposed to make you think, or I think it's supposed to, or something, But poetry is supposed to make you feel, and that's what I try really hard to do is, make you uncomfortable. And I think definitely with the newest collection, Darkest Sunlight, there are definitely poems in there that will make you uncomfortable. And I've tried for that. I mean, I grew up in a very religious home, and some of the subject matter that I chose to write about, especially in Darkest Sunlight, actually can make me cringe at times. So I'm thinking, if I can make myself cringe, I think I'm doing all right. I think that's where I'm supposed to be. So I don't know. It's definitely.
I was kind of laughing when you said that, because there was one part in my recent book that really should have a warning on it. I second and third and fourth guessed myself about whether I should even include this one scene in the book. It's pretty bad. Even as far as zombies go, it's nothing I've seen or read. So I kind of went to a point where I maybe shouldn't have. So I kind of get where you're going with that.
No, I love that. I think that's awesome. I think that we should always, especially as writers, we should always be pushing it. Always, and if you make yourself uncomfortable, that's awesome. I think that's awesome. So keep it up. Now I want to know what scenes these are.
Yeah, now I want to know
them.
I can kind of hint at it. Just and it's actually a real medical thing. If you want me to spend a few minutes on it.
Sure. We got plenty of time.
I would love that. Yeah. Yeah.
There's a thing called coffin death, and basically before the days of all the lovely antiseptics and formaldehydes and all the stuff that they do to preserve bodies, before those days, bodies would expand because of the gases inside them. And if a pregnant woman died and her body wasn't discovered in time, then a phenomenon called coffin death occurred, and the gases actually pushed the unborn fetus through the birth canal. So there was a case of that. There was an excavation done. I don't remember when it was done. I think in 2012, and they found one of these coffin births. So they found a mother whose fetus had been expelled partially because of. And they found it during, so the grave that they excavated was during the time of the Black Death. So I chose to include that in my book, and that's all I'm going to say.
Well, let me tell you something, Kelly. That scene right there, just that alone, has my full attention, and now I was already going to buy your book, but just.
Well, I actually, the first book I did, I was really obnoxious, and I included a bibliography because I thought, ooh, look at me, look how many books I've done. The second book I did, I actually just got rid of the bibliography and included a historical note at the end, and I've included a little bit about coffin death, just in case people were wondering what the hell.
But that's pretty cool though, because it's a disturbing scene, but it actually does happen. And I know a lot of people say, I read stories to get away from reality. I say, okay, that's fine. But a lot of us do that, and maybe a little too much sometimes, especially since you write, you put a lot of historical elements. Hell, it's historical horror. It sounds like it's very historically accurate, except for zombies.
Yeah. So I like being completely historical, but I can go very, very dark when I need to.
Ooh.
I love research in a book. I know that on our show we had an author one time, and it was a really cool subject matter for me. So I was really interested in knowing, how much research went into it, and I was actually a little surprised that the author was like, I just kind of made up everything because that wasn't the main point of the story or whatever, but I'm all for the research part of it. I think that is probably the most, entertaining for me, how much research goes into it and how, because I want to believe the story. I mean, I guess I do get what, people want to escape or whatever, but I also want to believe the story. I don't want to read and go, oh, that would never happen. I want some truth to my horror. I really do.
Yeah, well,
I love that.
That's what I was going for as well, because my first book is completely historical fiction and takes place around the year 1000. But the second book with the horror element to it, I still wanted to have the accurate history. So, for example, all of the medicine that I include in both books is completely accurate to the time period and whatever's being treated. There's a scene where my main character has to, sorry, spoiler alert, has to amputate a leg. And that's all done completely according to the time period. So I try to be as accurate as possible with the stuff that I can be. And then I have a lot of fun with the zombie stuff.
And touching on what Xtina said, through this podcast and talking with a lot of writers, I've actually learned that process of writing, the process of the research behind the story, that's where a lot of the best, I think my favorite moments doing this show is having conversations on that, digging into what went behind, because that's a whole other thing. It opens so many topics and things I never even knew before. It becomes like a learning experience, and I don't know. I find that fascinating, and I think people who enjoy this show enjoy it as well. I think, it's just.
Well, it's funny because a lot of my horror influences come from like my watching something called sci-fi theater when I was a kid on like Channel 29 Buffalo. We only had 10 channels in one of them, and every Sunday they had this thing called sci-fi theater, and they show all the really old, crappy, horrible 60s and 50s and 40s monster movies and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But one of my other influences is actually there are a couple of poets that I absolutely adore that do kind of creepy, like Edward Gorey, for example, or Hilaire here we go. Sorry? Hilaire Belloc. Sorry, I'm being corrected. They do really fantastic, sort of odd, not your normal sort of poetry, and that I've been really heavily influenced by those guys as well.
Oh, I was expecting Xtina to have a comment. I'm sorry.
Oh, you know what? I couldn't hear everything she was saying. I feel horrible. I was going to say something. Yeah. I was going to say that we had a guest on our show, and it was probably one of my all-time favorite shows. Her name was Alessandra Torre, I think it is. And I read her book like ages ago. It was The Girl in 6E, and it was this kind of like a erotic psychological thing going on, and it was all like the.
Hold on.
What?
I think James is calling back again. he actually hung up. I think
he'll probably call back.
James, are you there?
I am. Yeah. Sorry, I had to let my dogs out.
Sorry. No. Hold on. No. Hold on here. You left when Xtina was reading her poetry?
Yeah, I've heard it all before. To be honest with you. Well, notwithstanding, when my dogs need to go out, they need to go out.
He has a signed copy of Dark Musings on his shelf anyway, so I forgive him for that.
It's pride of place next to between actually my signed Clive Barker and my signed Chuck Palahniuk. So
oh my gosh, you have a signed.
There you go. You're amongst the greats, some of the greats there.
Company to be with.
Yes, I feel very honored. I'm a huge fan of both of their works. That's awesome. There you go.
It's only 2 books down from my signed James Herbert, which is my private possession. So there you go. But yeah, I've heard it all before. So she needs to write something new. To be quite honest with you.
And I wanted to
move on. Stop resting on her laurels a bit.
I wanted to ask Kelly about the accuracy on her book and the horrific elements in it. So, because there's also the Black Death, and that was a very horrific period, and all sorts of horrific details. I mean, how was that? I mean, how was researching that? I mean, did that make you feel all grimy and disgusted? I mean, that I don't know.
I I've kind of been so immersed in the horror stuff, like I said, since I was a kid. Like I wrote my very first horror story when I think I was in, let me think, grade 8. And I never got the story back, surprisingly. It was about a kid who follows a creepy old woman to an old shack because she's the weirdo in the town and he wants to figure out what's going on. And it ends up she's a witch and cuts off his legs and leaves him to die. And I never got that one back. And I was like, okay, what's going on? But I've always read horror books. I've been a big Stephen King fan since I was at summer camp.
Yeah.
I've been a huge, everything. I read Audrey Rose when I was in like grade 4, and I read, my parents caught me reading The Exorcist when I was 10 years old and took it away from me, and I got a copy of it. So I'm kind of like, they put it on the top shelf. It's like, I stood on a couch and grabbed it. Like, that didn't go so well. But so I've been so immersed in horror that I don't know if this is a bad thing, but when I was researching Black Death, it didn't horrify me as much as it probably should have. I don't know. That's probably bad. Like, it did horrify me, but I guess, I don't know, I've been researching history for so long now, and especially medieval history, and there's so much chaos. There's so many battles, and there's so many deaths. I guess it doesn't really affect me that much anymore. It's just history.
Well,
I don't know. That's awful, doesn't it?
And on this subject, and being that, every time you're on, I mean, you always school me and educate me on I guess the actual truths and facts about medieval life. I mean, you've proven time and time again that you know your stuff. So, what are some facts or myths about the Black Death? I mean, that you can share with us real fast.
It's funny you say that. I was actually going through and actually sharing some facts today. So basically, everybody kind of knows the statistic that it's possible up to 50% of the European population was wiped out by it. Now, they're still arguing about that, but it's more and more likely that many people actually died from it. Some of the weird things that people would have for curing it were, one of my favorites is plucking a chicken and rubbing the chicken on your bubo. That's one of my favorites. Crushing up emeralds and putting them in wine is also a really good one.
Ooh.
There's a couple of recipes that involve dung. And the thing that gets that this sounds like fiction, this is real. This is what people actually thought they were so terrified, and they had no answers, and a lot of the time the church would shut their doors because they would actually say, well, who's gonna administer to the people that survive this?
Right.
If we go out and help these people, we'll die. There'll be nothing left, so we're going to lock ourselves in. Either that, or they just ran to the countryside. So these people were terrified. They were blaming everyone and everything. The Jews got blamed at one point, and there were people just going around just killing Jews because they thought that, God was pissed off at them. So it's just, this is real stuff. It just fascinates me that this is so real.
That's like a trend. It's like, man, everything's going to shit. Who's to blame? The Jews.
Yeah,
it's like,
seriously.
It's always them.
Some fun facts. The Black Death, the term the Black Death wasn't actually used during the Black Death in 1350. They actually refer to it as the Great Mortality or the Great Plague. So the Black Death was something that came in afterwards, including, those pictures you see of the plague doctors with the big beaks and the hoods?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, those actually weren't, they were plague doctors for the 1666 plague. They weren't actually in use during the actual medieval plague, but a lot of people get that confused.
Because weren't those masks kind of like in the Renaissance period?
Yeah, exactly. But a lot of people, when they're talking about the Great Plague in the 1350s, they throw up these pictures, and it's like, well, these guys weren't around until 200 years later. But let's see, what else can I say? Okay, so the nursery rhyme "Ring a Ring a Rosies," and
yes.
Everybody thinks it's the Death.
That's yeah.
I thought so too. Right, ring around the rosies, pockets full of posies, ashes we all fall down. Right.
Ashes. Okay, so it actually isn't probably not. It's probably not about the Black Death. Actually, it actually appeared in print. It actually first appeared in 1881, and it wasn't the rhyme itself. And then it wasn't actually associated with the Black Death until World War II.
So
here's the full thing. And when you hear the second verse, you'll understand why this probably isn't about Black Death. So it's Ring of Rosies, a pocket full of posies, a tissue, we all fall down. Cows in the meadows, eating buttercups, a tissue, we all jump up. So it's the first verse people use and think, oh yeah, that's the Black Death. But if you use the second verse, it's not. So that's something.
Yeah, talking about cows and stuff, eating buttercups.
A lot of people. I know, seriously, right? So basically the Ring of Rosies actually refers to they used to plant these trees that children used to dance around as some sort of May sort of thing. And then the falling down reference refers to part of the dance that they're doing where they curtsy or bow.
Oh.
So, sorry, I just blew apart another childhood
because now it doesn't sound so morbid and cool. Now it sounds kind of lame and stupid. I'm like, what?
Yeah, I know, sorry.
it totally loses its whole edgy goth.
Invite me back next week, kids. I'll crush another one of your childhood memories.
Man, well, you might as well crush another one. Come on, just crush one. Just.
You really? Okay, King Arthur didn't exist.
I'm gonna find someone, Kelly. I'm gonna find someone who can prove that he existed and bring him on with you, and I'll have y'all go at it.
Go at it. Amalgamation of probably an Anglo-Saxon hero and a Roman hero. So sorry, he didn't really. Robin Hood didn't exist either, right? Sorry.
Blasphemy.
I'm gonna find someone.
Okay, I'll stop.
I'm gonna find someone, Kelly. I'm gonna find someone.
I'll stop.
I can weigh in, obviously, being British, and yet she is right. Yeah, I mean, Arthur was a myth, was a legend. Robin Hood was totally made up. But yeah.
Well, it's good to know that two Englishmen agree with me now because my husband's an Englishman.
Oh,
really? Whereabouts is he from in England?
Well, his last name's Evans, so he's originally from Wales. But we actually met up at the Natural History Museum fencing. Actually, we were both members of the fencing club. He was living in London.
Fantastic.
Yeah, so that's when we met. And I dragged him back to Canada.
There you go. There you go. I ended up in Houston.
Oh my gosh!
We get everywhere. We're everywhere.
You're absolutely out of water. At least in Canada, it's kind of a little bit like the UK, but except without the south.
It's nothing like it. To be fair, Houston, certainly Texas, from what I've seen of Texas so far, is like going back to England in 1985.
Oh my god!
It's just like. Yeah, but I just want to say to Kelly, I was listening in at the beginning about detail, and I mean, it is anybody who's read any of my work knows the detail, the research that I do that goes into that.
Yeah. And
I was reading. Somebody sent me a novel. Probably about 6 months ago, and it was set in medieval, in ye olde England times, and when S's were F's and all the rest of it, and it was doing okay. And then, first of all, the author said something about compared something to a rattlesnake. And I thought, well, this was like set in the 1300s when rattlesnakes had not been discovered. And then they went, because as a zoologist as well, that just took me straight out. So hang on a minute.
No. Okay.
And then later on, they mentioned some noise sounded like a machine gun. And this is set in like the 1300s.
No.
It's lazy. I mean, do these people not realise? And because, like you say, the idea is you immerse your reader in that period. There's someone mentioned machine gun. You might as well say, it sounded like a computer keyboard, an Apple Mac. Well, kind of spoke the story bit for me there,
That's the kind of historic fiction or even historic horror, whatever, that kind of drives me nuts because I did about a year of research for my first historic fiction novel, and again, I did about a year of research before I even wrote a stupid zombie book. So I like getting details right. And then, of course, the second one was a lot easier because I've already done the research. But then I had to research medieval Poland and the spread of the plague across Europe in various places across Europe. So probably about an additional 6 months went into the second book on top of the year. So I just I can't understand, if you're going to write historic fiction, just get it right.
Well, no, either get it right or don't bother. I mean, one of my pet peeves is anything zoologically incorrect. I'm just my teeth grate. They really do. It just and that happens a lot. I mean, funnily, one of my biggest pet peeves was Silence of the Lambs. Obviously, everybody's seen the iconic scene where they fish the pupa out of the girl's throat, and then obviously the whole thing with Starling identifying it. That is not the pupa of the death head moth.
You're kidding. What is it? Oh, I love this stuff. Tell me.
It is the pupa from the... Well, again, I don't know what they call it here, but in England it's called the convolvulus hawk, which is not actually... It's like an immigrant species. I mean, they occasionally pop up in England. The archetypal where the proboscis is raised out of the pupa... it's like a jug handle. Is specific to the convolvulus hawk. The death head hawk does not have that, and I guess I guess they did it because visually it looks a little bit more freaky or whatever. But
well, yeah, and
totally ruined the film for me. Absolutely ruined the film.
That out. That's
really
funny. You would get along very well. I've actually got. Actually, she was my maid of honor at my wedding. She's the spider expert at the Natural History Museum in London. You two would get along great.
Oh yeah, fantastic!
She's got all kinds of pet spiders, and she's actually part of a visual display they've got going there and stuff. And yeah, she's
fantastic.
Yeah, no, she's
we have a house full of weird and wonderful creatures. One of our more recent acquisitions was a pair of Chilean pink-toed tarantulas. They're still babies, but they are so sweet and fuzzy. They're awesome.
Yeah, I haven't gotten a picture in forever either. I need an updated picture. I just have one.
I must send you. They've grown. They've grown a bit. I mean, we got them Christmas time. So yeah. So they've molted a few times, and they're getting bigger. Bless them.
Are they hand trained?
Say again.
Are they hand trained?
We're getting there.
Okay.
We are getting there because they're still quite small.
Right.
The worry is he's squashing them. But we are getting there. We are getting there.
Oh, you're worried about you hurting them, not them hurting you. I mean, I guess.
I know.
They wouldn't hurt you. I mean, a bite would be no worse than a small bee sting. I mean, even at the size they are now, I mean, you probably wouldn't even. You'd hardly be like a mosquito. I mean, to be fair, the mosquitoes here frighten me more than the spiders. I mean, the mosquitoes here. I mean, they.
Well, I will give you that. The mosquitoes here in Houston suck.
Those big, fat, stripy ones. You can hear them.
Yeah.
And you can. It's just and they bite you, and by God, it hurts.
Mm-hmm.
And with the tarantulas. And maybe correct me if I'm wrong, it's not the bite that's really sort of dangerous to humans, it's more the hairs, because the hairs can get stuck in
It is the hairs. They actually deliberately will scrape the hairs from an abdomen and fire them at you, because if you get some of the skin, it can cause quite a nasty, irritating rash. A bite, even from a full-grown, hand-sized tarantula, is really no worse than a hornet sting.
But you can tell.
They say, people use deadly spider, and if you could get anaphylactic shock. To be fair, you can get anaphylactic shock from a peanut.
Oh,
be honest.
Hold on.
People like to say, they like to.
Let me get something straight, James. Let me get something straight. James, let me get something straight real fast. So would you rather spend an hour in a pit full of tarantulas, or an hour in a room filled with mosquitoes?
I'll take the tarantulas any day of the week.
Oh, okay.
Oh my God! Mosquitoes don't like me. They don't bite me. I think I have bad blood or something. Seriously, I don't get bit.
They don't touch me at all. They go for my husband like crazy. But
it's the same here. My daughter, she can be riddled with them, and they must fly past me. I actually read an article a while ago. Somebody's put forward the theory that it could be down to blood type.
Interesting.
Certain blood, apparently, whether it's been scientifically looked into or not, I don't know. But allegedly, certain blood types attract
I went camping up in northern Ontario with on some First Nations land, and the whole place was just covered in leaves, and it was damp, and it was horrible. And the mosquitoes were just crazy. Like, if you think your mosquitoes are bad, try northern Ontario, like Canada mosquitoes.
Oh,
like
man.
those little
Yeah.
around with like little axes and little hammers and little samurai swords, and those guys are out for blood. And I was basically the only person not getting bitten.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Well, I'll say I have never been there, but I will say, the mosquitoes here are definitely a pain in the ass. I mean, they're some of the worst things to do with over here. That and the humidity.
Do you guys?
You can't, I mean, it's right. You go, think, I'll sit. I will do it. I'm working hard all day. I'll just sit out in the sun for, have a bit of sunshine and maybe have a mug of tea or something. Sit on the back patio, and literally you can't manage more than 5, and they're bugging around you and biting. Oh, even me. I mean, they will still come and try and have a go, but
Do you have horseflies?
We do have horseflies here. Yes, I haven't been bitten by one yet, but they are nasty.
Oh.
They are nasty.
Oh my God! I was sitting in my room not too long ago, and this fly. I've never seen a fly like this before, ever. It was the biggest fly I've ever seen. It kind of scared me just a little bit, and I'm not afraid to admit that I was a little frightened of this fly, really. And then my teenage son, he came in and he saw the fly, and he ran. I'm not even kidding. He ran screaming from the room. So this was a crazy. You're laughing, but this was a crazy big fly. And the scary part was he just. I couldn't kill him because he's huge, and I thought that would be really gross, and it would splatter all over the place. So I couldn't kill him. And then he disappeared, and it kind of freaked me out because I'm like, where did the fly go? What is it going to? What is it going to do? Is it going to? Do these things bite? Do they really?
Horseflies, they can actually bite through. They can bite through clothing.
Okay, so I don't know what your version of horseflies are, but I go riding quite a lot. So horseflies, I'm used to encountering them around barns because they really, really like horses. But if they go after humans, they're about, I don't know, maybe almost an inch long, and they kind of look like, I don't know, mutated houseflies. And if
they're just like big houseflies, yeah.
Yeah, and if they take a chunk out of you, they don't bite. They take a chunk. Like, you will have a trickle of blood running down. One of those things.
Yeah, they don't pierce the skin like mosquitoes.
No.
They will, like Kelly said, they will take a chunk out of you and then suck the blood out of that, and they're just horrible things. I think they can bite through clothing as well. So.
Yeah, well, we've got. I don't know if you guys have this, but in northern Ontario, we've got black flies, and there's a black fly season. And what they do is they go for the area behind your ear. Oh God, those things are awful.
Ooh, man.
I have heard of these, but I'm not really sure if I've ever encountered them. I definitely have heard of them.
That's how if they are nasty, horrible, venomous, killer, whatever, Texas has them. I mean,
Oh, nice.
Yeah, we even have big cats,
having come from a country where the only sort of venomous, I mean, we have one venomous snake which hasn't killed anyone since sort of like 1968. We have, I think, the only dangerous spider actually is the false widow, which is an import anyway. That's all we have here. Everything will kill you. Literally, everything has to kill you.
And you know what? And we can.
Even the plants. Even the plants. We were over at my son's soccer practice, and my daughter was just playing in the sort of fields, and she literally just brushed by this tiny little innocuous-looking plant, and her foot looked like a balloon. Don't know what it was, and it was just tiny, sweet little plant, little pretty little flowers, and my God, I thought she was going to lose her leg. It was horrible.
Weird.
I want to hear the caterpillar story again. You remember the caterpillar thing? James.
Oh God, yeah.
That's not a euphemism or anything, is it? We're talking about caterpillar.
It's not. It's genuine. I fished this cute little fluffy cat. I kept finding them in the pool filter, and they were always dead. But I fished one out, and he was still alive. So I fished him out and took him out and dried him off. Got a bit of kitchen roll, dried him off and everything, and put him in a little thing, a little container with some oak leaves in it, and made sure he was fine and everything. So I'll just, look up, see what he is. And I looked him up and I did my research. And it is like the most deadliest insect on the planet. These things have spines under their fluffiness that inject. It's a neurotoxin. Wait. People die handling these things. I was just...
And that was here in Texas, right?
It's known as colloquially as an asp. It's a type of from the puss moth family, and these things, people die. I mean, they have reaction. People, they showed you. Google it. Massive open sores and terrible rashes and.
And James is here giving this caterpillar pretty much mouth to mouth, and
pretty much
him back to life.
Yes, I did. Yes, I did. Bless it. We called it Mr. Fluffy.
No. Now, knowing that, would you, if you had a choice, to sit in the pit of those asps or sit in the pit full of mosquitoes, which one would you choose?
The caterpillar was fine. I handled it, no problem.
Exactly.
Whether I got desensitized as a kid, because I was always bringing these things, I'm picking things up and whatever, and my friends would just have to, brush by one of these furry caterpillars, and they would have a rash and blah blah. Not once, and you name it, I've handled pretty much, the whole gamut of things. Never had a problem. Never had a reaction.
Maybe you're a gentle soul.
It could be that, or I just got that used to it.
Now, I am terrified. I am just terrified of spiders. I really am. Spiders just scare the crap out of me. It doesn't matter if they're small or what. But snakes, I'm completely fine with. I know a lot of people, they don't like either or whatever. But I actually had a snake when I was younger. I had a ball python, and I just loved him. I did. I used to wear him around my neck, and
awesome. Yeah, we have a ball. I've had him since 99, so it'll be coming up to 20 years now. He's got a Monty. We call him Monty. Called him Monty.
Mine was Monty too. I know that's
what else are you going to call a pet python, really? But we have a Burmese, which is probably about 12, 13 foot now, and we have a boa, which is. It's still, we brought one over from England, but he got old and died, bless him, Larry. He was huge, but we've now got one. Pearl is probably about 7 foot. She's still a baby, bless her, but they're great. They're sweet. The Burmese is of the size now where you have to handle him. There has to be 2 grown-ups handling him because he could very easily. I
always wanted a boa. Boas are really pretty.
Yeah, I can't do snakes or spiders. Look at that. I think I'm gonna do it. I think I'd be like, what? Wow, but that's pretty metal though. That's pretty ballsy. That you guys just like, I'll just pick up the snake. No problem. Just slither all around me.
I loved my snake. I did. I really loved him, and
what about you, Kelly? You like snakes?
I would wear him, and I would walk into, I'd walk to town, and I don't know. I had a great time with him. He was great. He was my buddy.
Oh, how long did you have him for? How long? Because they can live in captivity up to 45 years.
Ooh, wow.
I'm trying to think. It was probably a couple of years, but then we moved. We ended up moving. I lived in upstate New York, and that's where I had him. And then when we were going to move to Florida, I had to get rid of him. So a friend of mine bought him. And it was
Florida
very sad.
pretty strict with what you can and can't take.
Yeah, it was.
It's funny how our Burmese now we have him licensed and everything. Obviously, we had the paperwork we had to fill in to be able to bring him over was touch and go actually. But even now, because the laws have changed since we moved here, we cannot. If we moved out of state, we could not take him. We are not allowed to take him out of state at all.
Wait, out of state? You can't take him out of Texas, or are you talking about out of the U.S.?
No, can't take him out of Texas. So if we moved to any other of the 49 states, we could not take him. We cannot ship him across the state line.
That's interesting. I wonder why.
I mean, now we wouldn't. If we moved over here now, we would not have been allowed to bring him over.
Wow.
And it's because of the I mean, Florida has a big problem. I think California does as well. They have a big problem where people release them or they escape or whatever. They're in the wild and they just decimate the indigenous populations.
I mean, if you were to, let's say you were moving across state. Let's say you're moving, I don't know, to another home or something, and you just packed up the snake in a truck or whatever, and you went across state lines. Is that a no-no?
If we got caught, we would be in a whole heap of shit. Yes.
Wow. I mean, why is that?
Because of they've tightened up with non-indigenous species. Certainly big snakes. I say they. I mean, there's been documentaries, but certainly in Florida in the Everglades. These things. I mean, A, they grow to massive size. B, they are just voracious eaters. They will eat, and they just.
Oh wow.
They destroy. They will eat all the rodents, the rabbit, whatever, and obviously then the indigenous species will die out. I mean, these things are very, very invasive, and because of the size they get to. It's not that they're dangerous
that's
to
what they're
people,
worried about.
They destroy the ecosystem.
Gotcha. They're worried about that thing getting out and getting loose. So they actually track it. I mean, do they check up with you every now and then, make sure that
No, I mean, we have him licensed. I guess if they wanted to, they would. But It's one of those things. Yeah, we could probably put him in the back of the truck and transport him, and nobody would know. But if we did get found out,
do you have to pay for this license?
Found out, hang on, these people have just moved here. Moved to Iowa from Texas, and they've got this big snake. Therefore, if somebody grassed us up to Fisheries and Wildlife, we would be in trouble. But he's here and he's legal, and we got all the paperwork and everything, and he's, it's one of these things. People say, you've got a creature in the house that could conceivably, if it got out, it could kill someone. I mean, But then again, we've got a 120-pound Mastiff mixed dog who equally, if he got pissed off, could kill someone. So I mean, it's all about perspective,
So I have to ask you real fast. Do you have to pay for this license? I'm pretty sure it's a yes.
I mean, it's something like, I think it's like $25. I mean, it's not massive money.
Oh.
But it's more a way of, I guess, the system being able to track and know who's got what, So apparently, interesting facts. I mean, I think Texas has more tigers in captivity, more privately owned tigers than there are in the wild. It's been ridiculous. I mean, it's just like, who the hell has a pet tiger? I mean, really? I mean, there's got to be a limit. Come on.
That's one thing that we're doing here in Texas. We're bringing, not only do we have a lot of poisonous animals over here, but we're bringing over crazy big cats and other animals. So, wow, that's Texas for you. But Kelly, you like snakes?
I'm okay with snakes. Yep.
Would you?
Spiders. I used to have a trouble with spiders.
I started out with a corn snake. Like I had just a little corn snake, and then I went up to. It was like an albino corn snake. It was a little bit bigger, and he was really. I think Cleo. That's what her name was. She was so pretty. And then I remember I had a friend. It actually was my mom's boyfriend at the time, and he had a ball python, and I was always a little leery of him because he was big, and so it kind of freaked me out a little bit. I wasn't necessarily scared. It was just I would stick to the smaller snakes, and then on purpose one day he was like, "Here, hold this," and he just like threw it at me pretty much, and I don't know. I got over my weirdness, and I think I fell in love with him a little bit. I'm like, I love this snake, and so that's how it started for me. My snake love. By accident. It was, I know. That's very heartwarming, isn't it?
I grew up in a house that was sort of like in a part of a new survey in an area in Ontario, and we had fields everywhere. Like we were next door to a cornfield, and there was trees and fields and forests everywhere. It was completely like out in the middle of nowhere. And every time you turned over a rock, we had these things called garter snakes. I don't know if you've got those. They're completely harmless. They're just. But we used to go around turning over and looking for garter snakes. It was just like kind of part of your childhood.
We used to. Yeah, I think I guess they still are. Yeah, I mean, I had when I was at university, I had a pet garter snake.
They're
very popular as pets. So,
they're very sweet.
Mm-hmm.
I had a friend that had a pet garter snake, and I had pet, I think hamsters or gerbils at the time, either one. I mean, there was a bunch.
No,
And
I don't like.
well, I mean, we're kids at the time, and we decided to see what happened when we mixed the two. It wasn't, as you can probably already guess.
Yeah.
it was pretty bad.
There you go. Lesson learned.
Yeah. I mean, well,
my snake, you feed them the little pinkies, well, I don't know if it was a baby rat or I guess it was a baby rat. And for whatever reason, my snake wasn't hungry. When I tried to feed him this baby rat, it was just, a little hairless thing, no eyes aren't even open. And my snake wouldn't eat it. And here, I remember I rescued it, and I tried to, save him. It was actually, I don't know if it was a girl or boy, but I called her Juliet, and I would wake up every, couple of hours to feed it out of this tiny little dropper thingy, and it ended up dying. It was very sad. I cried.
Oh. But you're quite happy to feed it to the snake. I mean,
Yeah, exactly. It was totally okay to feed it to the snake, but yet it died on my watch, and I was sad.
What, though?
I actually know what. That's the first time I've heard of that term pinkies, because my uncle, who for bizarre reasons is exactly the same age as me, so we got along like we were friends as we were kids. He actually got a piranha, and he used to feed it pinkies. So imagine you putting pinkies in front of a snake in dry. He would just drop pinkies into the water so the piranha could go after them. It was interesting. Yeah.
It sounds so brutal now. It really does, but I used to do it. So.
It's not really that brutal, though, if you think about it. I mean, it's nature. Like, these animals are predators. They eat. And of course,
snake was... I think my snake was a little, I don't know, I want to say a little retarded, because, one time he went to eat the pinky, and he started, usually they start, head first, and, but this time it started with the feet first. Oh. And this is a horrible story. I can't believe I'm telling it. The stupid pinky, cried and made noise the whole time. And I'm like, no.
You? If you've been eaten feet first by a snake.
That's horrible, isn't it?
That kind of reminded me of the scene that happened. When my friend brought a snake over, we put it in the hamster cage, and it was a feeding frenzy. God. But for those people, and some people would be like, "Wait a second, this sounds like another Mr. Deadman being a shit to his pets." Hold on here. You have any idea how these hamsters are to each other? First of all, the father hamster eats the babies because he doesn't give a fuck about his babies. So that's what we're talking about here. Okay, come on now.
Okay, can I? It sounds like, I don't know if you. I'm a huge Stephen King fan, so this sounds like, he does little flashbacks in his stories to things that affected the children, and especially maybe he does all the flashbacks and stuff. All these little stories that we all have about animals and pinkies and snakes and stuff all sound like a Stephen King flashback of something huge and horrible coming.
Yeah, which is why we're all
there may well
killers,
be.
Right?
There may well be.
Which is why we write horror.
I remember the pinkies floating through the water as the piranhas zoomed up the bottom to...
Mm-hmm.
I have to admit, all of the horror writers that I have talked to, and I have got to say, they are the nicest people I have ever met, and I think that they're the most well-adjusted as well. Some of these, the erotica writers that I know and are friends with, or any other genre, I think that if you don't write scary, if you don't write the brutalness, you don't get it out. And I'm fearful of these people now. I am. So the horror community, we're just adjusted because we write and we get it out there. That's my take on it. And
yeah, it's kind of like a cleanse.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
I think we're also I don't think we're easily shocked by things as well. So I think if you talk to us, you can actually have a decent conversation without having to worry about being shocked by things or self-censoring or that sort of thing.
Right.
Yeah, that is true. It is. I mean, it takes.
I've read.
Just take a lot to shock us, I think. Yeah.
I've read some of the things that James has written, and there's part of my brain going, "Oh my God, this is just wrong," and I can't get over it. And I'm like, he's such a nice guy. I don't.
one night on Facebook, I sent him a message telling him that the story in Campfire Tales was actually one of the ones that actually made me cry. I cried.
Yeah, you did.
I cried because I just.
And it wasn't like it was. I mean, you know, that's one of my favourite stories, and it's not out and out horror. It's heart wrenching. I mean, it made me cry when I wrote it. Actually,
and you know what though? You're right, because you're right about it not necessarily being outright horror, because someone could pick up that story and frame it in a way and make it a movie and spin it as like a drama or something. But what was happening was definitely horrific. And that's what I enjoyed about it, is that it's one of the stories where it's touching on something that can happen in real life and stuff that does happen in real life in various places, especially war-torn areas right now. It's happening. Family dynamics get shattered, and you bet your ass abuse runs rampant over little things, silly things, over a matter of pride, if you will. And it's just, I mean, I don't know. Like a story like that, it does something for me. And I had to tell you, I was like, you made me cry. You made me cry.
I'm sorry, but actually, I did my job. I mean, that was,
seriously.
You know, and we've said it before. You know, I mean, quite often. I mean, yeah, we write about demons and monsters and all that sort of thing. But more often than not, the most terrifying stories are usually people.
Yep.
Definitely, I agree. You know, when I remember when I was younger and I used to play this game where I would, in my mind, picture, you know, like Jason, you know, and I would think, okay, where would the scariest place for him to be? Would it be, you know, outside my window? Would it be scary if he was in my closet? Would it be scary if he was under my bed? You know, stuff like that. And it would never really scare me. It really wouldn't. But, you know, these real life things that actually happen, they're way creepier and way scarier.
But you just look, I mean, you know, you read about, you know, Ted Bundy, John Wayne Gacy. I mean, we've said this before, you know. I mean, the number of people that said, do you know, he was the nicest bloke. I mean, John Wayne Gacy, people booked that man to perform as a clown at their kids' birthday parties, and then suddenly they found out he's got a couple of dozen, you know, young men's bodies in his crawl space, you know. And people, I'd never forget, he was the nicest. Bundy used to work on a suicide hotline. He was the nicest man, everybody said. And then suddenly it comes out, and it's like, wow, you know, you just don't know. I mean, I think Dahmer, everybody said, yeah, he was an oddball. He was, like, voted most likely to be a serial killer. But the majority of these people are just, like, normal people next door to you. Could have corpses in their crawl space. You don't know. And I think, for me, that is the most terrifying thing of all.
It is. It really is. Well, and when you see that post, there's this post that's been going on around Facebook, and like everybody's reposting it, so it's kind of getting like really old now. But it's the one where, you know, this guy picks up a hitchhiker, and the hitchhiker says, you know, well, how do you know I'm not a serial killer? And the guy is like, well, you know, the odds of two serial killers being in the same car would be astronomical. And to me, that's just hilarious.
Yeah.
But the odds will be there. I mean, they say that in the States alone, they believe there's 2,000 active serial killers at any one time. 2,000.
Wow.
That's
at any one time, and so your odds of bumping into one of them are pretty, you know.
It's funny that
I'm gonna go
because I actually wrote a short story. It was published years ago. It's one of the very first things I ever got published, and it was about it was a serial killer stalking this woman. It was from his point of view, and he's stalking her, and finally, and there's a little bit of, I guess, a little bit of erotic tension there as well. And finally, he gets into her apartment, and he's about to kill her, and it ends up she's a serial killer as well, and she turns a knife on him. So
nice.
I didn't realize that was a kind of a thing. But a lot of my killers particularly in my short stories. So my two horror novels have been a male main character, but my short stories are predominantly female serial killers or absolutely.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Cool.
Well,
that is rare. I mean, the demographic of serial killers is very, very rarely a woman. It's
Well,
usually
the thing is,
white males in their early 40s, I think, is the
but if you look at it from a storyteller's point of view, with modern technology, there's no reason a woman can't dismember a body as easily as a man can.
I think it's more. That's fine. I think it's more down to obviously the mental state. It's more likely to be a guy. It's just one of those things, that maybe women need to step up to the plate.
Well, let me tell you something. I used to work at a psych facility, right? And it had multiple units, a bunch of units. And it had an all-female unit, and an all-male unit, and all that stuff. And the units that had the most problems of fighting and violence and just restraints and seclusions and all this stuff, it wasn't the all-boys. It wasn't even the mix. It was the all-female. It was the all-female.
Wow.
I'm telling you.
I believe that. Well, okay, so when I was in university, I fenced, like the swords, fencing. And I used to practice with the guys because I used to think, well, when I get into tournaments, I'll have a little bit of an advantage when I fence because I was only allowed to fence women. And when I started fencing women, oh my God, was I ever at a disadvantage practicing with men. Women are vicious.
They are. That's very true. Very catty. Very, very catty.
God.
And yeah, it's very true.
So I think it's years and years and years, we're talking centuries of repression under whether it's the church or whether it's society, or women have always been told, keep your mouth shut, look pretty, and just do the housework. But, underneath all of that, we have the same shit going on as men do, and it's only a matter of time before the women's equality actually, we have some female serial killers entering the mix.
Yeah,
so
we need more of them,
I
say.
Be warned, boys. Be warned.
I'm not advocating.
Is that what we're advocating for?
People, but
yeah.
I'm just
saying. Put adverts out in sort of, in
I'm just
post. We need more women serial killers, please.
I'm not advocating for anybody's death, but I'm just saying I'm sure that females have the emotions that would push them to that extent. It's just that we've been trained not to.
Yeah, I have a number of my poems actually in both of my dark poetry books that are women who are snap and kill their. It's always they kill their lover, so that's a warning out there to all men, and be careful what you do to these women, because I'm writing about all horrible things. In one of them, she ties the guy to the chair and she sets the house on fire, and that was so much fun to write. It really, really was. So.
Yeah, I did a short story where a grieving mother, her son died, and he was an organ donor, and she goes around killing, sort of kidnapping all the people that his organs are in, and she feeds them. She kind of feeds them medication to keep them alive, to make sure the organ isn't rejected, because she's trying to put her son back together. So yeah, that was a fun one to write.
Whoa.
Yeah. Yes.
To go women.
Yeah, I know guys, they have to be warned and beware, and because I truly believe that we are the way that we are because of them, so I blame men for our bad behavior.
I knew it had to be our fault, didn't it?
Oh, yeah,
yes.
of course.
Yes.
Whatever you do it,
Hey,
without that, we're just
James.
Without that, we're just sweet, innocent creatures.
James, man, don't even bother trying to mansplain yourself out of this, because we have Kelly and Xtina on here.
No, I'm just resigned to the fact it's our fault. Probably my fault personally, and
it is.
With that,
You horrible, misogynistic bastard.
I wish to apologise for it all being my fault.
Yeah.
Move on.
You're forgiven.
But yeah, equal representation in serial killers, please. Mr. Deadman said that. No. Coming towards the end of the show, but shit, we might have some time, a few minutes, maybe. I don't know. Talk about favorite horror movies.
Oh, seriously?
Just briefly, if you can. Oh man.
Well, okay. So from the historical point of view, I like Medieval Dead. I like Ash and the whole, Evil Dead thing. And then I guess from a pure horror, I like Alien's got to be one of my tops.
Ooh, Aliens or Alien? Or the whole series in general?
Oh, I like both of them, but I'm going to go with Alien because that was the more genre-breaking movie. It was kind of the first time you got a cross-genre, like a horror movie in space, and it was science fiction in space, and it was very genre-breaking and very new. So I'll go with that one.
All right.
Yeah.
That was a good pick. All right. Xtina, what about you?
I am a huge fan of the Rob Zombie Halloween remakes. I love them. I do, and I make it a point to watch them every year on Halloween. They're just demented. Like, they truly are demented, and I've said this before, but every time I watch them, I am sure that I'm going to come away just messed up for life, But it doesn't stop me from wanting to watch it again. So those are my number one. Yeah.
I love Rob.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I do. I was just going to say, I love Rob Zombie.
Now, I will say, I know there's some listeners, I know I had a guest on before, be like, oh, Rob Zombie can't direct for shit. What would you say to someone like that? Because for me, it was like, man. But what would you say?
Well, okay, so it depends on how you feel. Okay, so a lot of, so for me, his remake of Texas Chainsaw Massacre, for example. Wait a minute. Am I getting that right?
The Halloween. You're talking about the Halloween remake?
That's what I was talking about with Halloween.
Okay, you know what? I think I might have had a little bit too champagne, so I'm gonna ignore that I just said that.
It's okay. Hey, we all make mistakes, and we're drinking, and it's a live show. We're
definitely.
We're gonna say something stupid.
If you listen to the Panic Room, I make a crazy mistake just about every week, and I tell James that I'm just trying to, stock up our bloopers reel, and I think I'm doing a great job of that. So,
You know what, though?
I'm getting zombies mixed up with my Toby Hoopers, and I'm sorry about that. So that I'm blaming the champagne for that.
And I've seen both the Halloween original and Rob Zombie remake, and when I saw Rob Zombie's remake, I liked it at first. My first viewing of it because it showed the backstory of Michael Myers, but it was like, but go back watching the original, I was like, but you never got that. It was sort of like this ambiguous, like, who is this guy? And there's something to that.
Exactly.
I don't know. If I had to choose which one I like, of course I'm going to go with the original. But it was kind of interesting to see someone to take it and kind of fill that line, kind of fill those pages, if you will. I mean, any other director could have picked it up and put their own spin to it. Rob Zombie put his spin to it.
I think there's also, when you have a favorite movie, there's also a reason, not only because you like the movie, because of the time and the place and where you were at your life. And so where I was when I saw the original Halloween was completely different than where I was and how I was thinking. And I'd seen the original Halloween when I'd virtually seen hardly any slashers at all. So it made a really big impression. But then after the remake, I'd seen so many other slashers and so many other people's interpretations of various other horror movies that it didn't have the same emotional impact as the original, I guess. But I guess you could say that about any original movie.
Yeah. And I also think that with remakes, you just have to tell yourself it's not, like I loved The Shining, and I also loved the remake, the miniseries that they put out. Now, if you compare the two, they're totally different, and I think that's what a lot of times people do. Well, they did this different, and they did this. Well, it's not the same, So, I mean, I think as long as you don't try to compare them, and you just like them for the, each individual one, I think that makes a difference. Because I loved the original Halloween, I really did, but I also think that the remakes were so much fun. I really did. I loved the whole atmosphere, and I liked the way Rob Zombie tried to take it tried to put it now. I don't know. It had the '70s touch to it, with like the music and the clothes and stuff like that. But also
he's good on that.
So that was so cool. Like I loved the whole feel of him. I really did.
I appreciate when a modern, like when someone tries to remake something like a classic like that, but then there's a nod to the history of the movie or to the origins of the movie.
Well, and Rob Zombie, he has a thing for the '70s anyway. Just about he throws kind of I guess, time relics in there, little nods.
Yeah.
Oh, and the other thing that movie benefited from, the remake, was that better sound quality, better production quality, as far as because the scene where Michael Myers was going off and going after, man, it was intense because the sound was much more intense, and I don't know. I can see why people like it, and I did enjoy it, and I still do enjoy it. There's something to enjoy from it.
Too.
Is it my favorite? No, it's not my favorite, but I would still watch it, and that's okay. But that's a good pick. That's a good pick. Sorry.
What's your favorite, Jesse?
Oh, my favorite horror movie it has to be. Well, my favorite is the original Halloween.
Go, Michael Myers! Yeah.
That or Evil Dead.
The thing you said about sound quality, though, is it's weird. So when I was at summer camp, my memories are faded and kind of fuzzy and kind of crackly, like the soundtrack of the original movie, and kind of like the photo stock of the original movie. So the original movie and my experience at summer camp kind of go hand in hand.
Now, hey, is James still on? Hey, James, are you still there?
Yeah.
Okay, what about you? You're still on the line?
To be honest, it's late. This is late for me. This.
Oh well,
I've had a long day.
He gets up to like 5 in the morning or something like that. It's and I sleep till noon. So.
Well, his kids probably wake him up.
Well, the thing is, I mean, during term time, I have to be up at 5:30 to get the kids up and off to school. Because my teenage son, he would just never get his ass out of bed. And it takes me probably halfway through the summer break to get out of that. I'm programmed to be literally 17 minutes past 5. You can set your clock by me. I'm up. I'm awake. So it makes for some very long days for me. But there you go. I get up late now. I mean, they sleep. They stay up late. They sleep. So I get up. I don't get out of bed quite that early. I like a bit of a snooze, but I get up and I can get 3 or 4 hours work done before they even wake up. But it works for me because I can get my writing time. So I can
okay. Well, James, what's your favorite horror movie?
Oh, I think I would say Hellraiser, the original Hellraiser. I mean, because at the time, it was sort of when was it? 87.
I think so.
It was. I remember it was the first time I'd ever done it because we grew up in the sort of the early 80s, watching all the video nasties and all the rest of it, and I literally, funnily enough, I was browsing the good old days of the video store. We lived in a small sort of town, and we had a little video store, and I was just browsing, and I actually caught the name Andrew Robinson, who has played Scorpio in Dirty Harry, and I recognised the name. I thought, I'll grab that. I'd never heard of Clive Barker till that point. Mm-hmm. Took the film home and sat and watched it. Literally, I mean, this shows how old I am. They got to the end, rewound it, and watched it again straight on. And it was just so different, so groundbreaking, so new. It was just fun. Even now, I will sit and watch it now, and it's still thoroughly enjoyed. And I've seen all of them, and some are good, some are not so good, and what have you. And that got me into Clive Barker, and then I went out and bought Books of Blood and all the rest of it. I think my next is a great little independent one I always recommend to people called Yellow Brick Road. Xtina's heard me mention. I need to get her a copy actually. Great little. I can't even remember how I came across it. I just found it somewhere, and it will creep you the hell out. I mean, it's so. It's more. It's less gory. But it's just the feeling of menace and malevolence through the whole thing will literally eat into your head. It will just stay there.
Now, is it creepier than that? The Autopsy of Jane Doe, is it creepier than that? Because that would be really.
The Autopsy of Jane Doe is a very, very good film. Again, I would recommend it. But yeah, I would say it probably gets into your head more There's just something about maybe. I think the soundtrack that they use, like the oldie time music hall type music, you know, that sort of tinny, sort of echoey noise sound that it had. They use that in the background as the creepy things are happening, as they're walking through the forest, and that noise is all pervading and what have you. And it's just so well done with the sound. The soundtrack, he does it literally throughout the film. It eats its way into your mind.
I want to watch it.
I'll dig out my copy for you.
Yay!
It's worth watching. Yeah.
All right, well, we're gonna check that out. Well, ladies, gentlemen, we're kind of towards the end here. Any last thing you want to say, Kelly? I know you plugged your book, but I don't know if you want to do like a little reminder. I don't know. And Xtina, anything you want to plug?
Dark Musings. It's on Amazon. It's on our website, HellBoundBooks.com, and anything you want to know about Xtina, you can find on my website, and that's darkpoetprincess.com. And I have a book coming out in the fall. Look forward to it. It's Darkest Sunlight, and I can't wait for it to come out.
All right, all right. And what about you, Kelly?
No, I've got the second of my Marta Carney books, Revelation, out, so both of them are on sale.
Hold on, I thought the bishop kindly asked you to unpublish that for your safety.
Well, I haven't quite decided that I'm going to comply with his very polite request.
He was very polite. He had a way to give a threat that was, it almost sounded like it sounded like a compliment.
It was a threat, but not a threat. It was a very, I can kind of picture myself. He's actually done me a favor because I can picture myself as, Catherine de Medici and the Pope in the 1500s sort of getting back to me and telling me, no, you can't kill your relatives. And I'm like, yeah, I don't think so, Pope. So I don't know. But if in the time between he's told me this thing not to publish the book, you want to read either of them, they are on sale for 99 cents each on Amazon. And, you can go on there and hopefully enjoy it. And if you have any questions about the Black Death or medieval stuff, I've got all kinds of information on my website, which is kellyaevans.com.
All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening. If you enjoy this, press the heart button and share around. All right, with that said, y'all take it easy.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Hey.
Bye.
You headed out to a day party, barbecue, or outdoor festival? Well, let me hit you with this weather forecast. 98 degrees and no breeze. But don't worry, man. Allspice's Pure Sport Antiperspirant is the perfect wingman to keep you fresh and crisp all day long.